limits, man. Whoa. Okay, calm down.
And tell us more about Mohammed bin Salman and Khashoggi.
So in the case of Saudi Arabia, I mean, I talked about what Saudi Arabia is trying to do, trying to balance the West against Russia and China. As for the situation with Jamal Khashoggi, I mean, we should also be realistic and understand who this guy was. This isn't, again, I mean, I've been reporting on the war in Yemen for many years, since the very beginning in 2015. Like when I used to be at this media outlet, Salon, and my editor would always be like, you want to write another article about Yemen?
Right.
Like, so no, I don't need to show people that like I hate Saudi Arabia. It's an awful regime.
Right.
But we should also understand that just because someone is portrayed as like a so-called dissident doesn't mean that they're good, right? So Jamal Khashoggi, people don't know, he was a columnist. He was not a
Nor does
journalist.
it mean that they should be like dismembered.
Yeah, obviously not.
Yeah.
That's brutal. I mean, it's awful.
Right.
It's a horrible crime. But we should also understand that just because he was killed by a bad guy doesn't make him a good guy. He was also a bad guy. Jamal Khashoggi, going back to the 1980s, was a CIA asset. In the 1980s, he made his name when he was in his 30s by working for a Saudi regime propaganda outlet called the Arab News. And he was in Afghanistan, and he was working with Saudi intelligence and the CIA, and he was the coordinator for the Arab Mujahideen, right? So these are the forces that were backed by the CIA and Saudi Arabia and Pakistani intelligence, ISI, to wage a proxy war against the Soviet Union. And basically, they gave birth to Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. They were Islamist extremists. Of course, Ronald Reagan invited them to the White House. Margaret Thatcher visited some Mujahideen camps and called them freedom fighters, but they were far-right Islamic extremists. And Khashoggi got his start working with the Arab Mujahideen, the Arab volunteers who joined the Afghan Mujahideen. And he was also a close ally of Osama bin Laden. All of this is very well firmly established. David Ignatius in the Washington Post admitted that Jamal Khashoggi was a close friend of Osama bin Laden. And also, Jamal Khashoggi was a longtime member of the Muslim Brotherhood. And this isn't to be like some Islamophobic conspiracy theory, but we should understand like the internal conflicts within Muslim majority countries. So Saudi Arabia is Wahhabi. The official state ideology of Saudi Arabia is this certain kind of very extreme, austere Sunni Islam that's called Wahhabism. And they see the Muslim Brotherhood as one of their main adversaries, one of their main threats. So Khashoggi represented a different political alliance in the region. He was working closely with the Qatar Foundation, which was writing his articles at the Washington Post because he didn't speak English very well. He was also clearly coordinating with the Turkish government, not to make things personal, but his wife is Turkish and is closely linked to the Erdogan government and the AKP party, which is the Muslim Brotherhood.
Wow, you just got really personal, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, we just to understand like these political alliances, right?
Yeah.
So he represented
You went there.
So Khashoggi represented a certain faction of the Saudi royal family, and that faction happened to be the faction that was most loyal to the CIA, and specifically Mohammed bin Nayef. So very brief history here. So Mohammed bin Salman is the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. He's not the king, but the king, Salman, his father, has very bad dementia. Everyone knows that. I mean, he's not running anything.
He may not know that, though. He may not know that he is it.
Well, what's funny is in the U.S., Biden suffers from the same, but we still pretend like he's in charge, unlike King Salman. So So Mohammed bin Salman
is competing punchlines there.
Oh, sorry, I'm ranting here. So
no. I was interrupting you with a gauche joke. Yeah.
No. My bad. So in Saudi Arabia, the lineage of the crown is king. Second would be crown prince. And then third would be deputy crown prince. So when King Salman came in, because King Abdullah died 8 years ago now, 7 years ago. And then when King Salman came in, he made his son, Mohammed bin Salman, deputy crown prince, which made him third in line for the throne. So what Mohammed bin Salman did is he did like this very authoritarian purge, and he purged his cousin, Mohammed bin Nayef, who was supposed to be the next in line for the throne, the second. And Mohammed bin Nayef was a close ally of the CIA. He had been the spokesman for the head of Saudi intelligence, Turki bin Faisal, and he speaks fluent English. He studied in the U.S. He lived in Virginia for a while, CIA headquarters. He was basically a close friend of John Brennan, right? John Brennan was former CIA director, and John Brennan spent a lot of his time in Saudi Arabia working with people like Turki bin Faisal and Mohammed bin Nayef. They represented the very pro-U.S. wing of the Saudi royal family. So Mohammed bin Salman purged his cousin, and then he like imprisoned a bunch of people in like the Hilton Hotel, and like some people died in mysterious helicopter crashes. You know, this kind of traditional like authoritarian purge of all your rivals. And then he made himself crown prince and is now the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia. So he purged the people that were most loyal to the U.S. and were CIA assets, like the people who were allied with Jamal Khashoggi, and he made himself leader. And of course, Mohammed bin Salman is this young guy. He fancies himself like, he thinks he's going to like save Saudi Arabia. He's like investing billions of dollars building this city in the middle of the desert called Niam, where he claims like it's going to be like this futuristic city, even though there's like no water. So anyway, he has like very grand ambitions, and he thinks that he's like a major player on the world stage, and he's trying to balance the superpowers against each other. And of course, that very much angers the U.S. So the thing about Khashoggi is that, yeah, I mean, he was very brutally murdered. Obviously, no one is endorsing that. That's awful. But we should understand that the reason that was so amplified is not because of the brutal murder. Saudi Arabia a few months ago killed 81 people on the same day. Half of them were Shia, and we didn't hear much media coverage of that. The reason there was so much media coverage of Khashoggi's killing is because he was a CIA asset. He was also working closely with Qatar and Turkey, and they were using their media outlets like Al Jazeera to amplify the campaign around Khashoggi. The Saudi consulate in Turkey is where he was killed, and Turkey was spying on the Saudi consulate because there's a rival between Turkey and Saudi Arabia, and Turkey was like selectively leaking all of these like, you know, videos and audio recordings to turn up the heat on its rival, Saudi Arabia. So we have to understand all of those factors to understand what's actually happening. And it's not just like, you know, Khashoggi is this great pro-democracy martyr. He actually never supported democracy. He went to his deathbed always defending the Saudi regime, but he was loyal to a wrong faction that lost power when MBS came to power.